All right, this is going to be a review of the Buddhas, and this is demonstrating the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. So we're going to first be taking notes on numbers 195 and 184. You have the Longmen Caves in China, and then the older piece is called Jowo Rinpoche, which is enshrined in the Jokang Temple, and this is in Tibet. So there's your identifying information. All right, we're going to start with Jowo Rinpoche, the older one, the oldest piece, and this is called the Precious One, or Jowo Rinpoche translates to the Precious One. All right, so this is Buddha Shakyamuni at age 12. Shakyamuni is the historical Buddha, and this is actually sculpted. I've read some things that say it's sculpted from a portrait of him or sculpted during his lifetime. So therefore, it is very sacred. Significance and sacred power comes from the actual likeness of the Buddha. This is like an actual portrait of him. Made in India, which is where Buddhism started, right? And then brought to Tibet by a Chinese princess as part of a marriage dowry. So when the sculpture is brought to Tibet, this also coincides with the foundation of Buddhism in that country. So this is a great example of cultural exchange. And then this temple is actually built to house this sculpture. It's using a combination of local Tibetan, Nepalese, Chinese, and Indian styles. The exterior is decorated with early non-figural symbols of the Buddha. So in the early times of Buddhism, he would just be described as symbols, like using a wheel as a symbol for the Eightfold Path. And then later, as Buddhism developed, they would actually start depicting Buddha as a figure. And smaller shrines contain sculptures of other revered figures. Pilgrims can circumambulate using a specially built path around the temple or may spin prayer wheels while in the main shrine. All right, back to the Buddha. So he is seated with his legs in the lotus position. His left hand is in the mudra of meditation. The right hand is in the gesture of calling the earth to witness. So together, all those postures signify the moment of the Buddha's enlightenment. That's what his body language is communicating. So the College Board says, according to Buddhist tradition, Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha, was tempted by the demon Mara to keep him from gaining the insights necessary for his spiritual awakening. Shakyamuni was able to defeat the demon by calling upon the earth as a witness that he had achieved enlightenment. This is considered to be a key moment in Buddhism, as it constitutes the instant when Shakyamuni became the Buddha or enlightened one. This is the way in which Jowo Rinpoche is depicted, reaching with his right hand to the earth for confirmation. And he's wearing a robe. It's really thinly depicted, right? It's not really sculpted in relief. It almost just seems like some really thin lines that are barely there, and it's going across his left shoulder, which is a good comparison to make to the Bamiyan Buddhas, right? So the drapery that we're seeing in the Afghanistan Bamiyan Buddhas is really inspired by the Greek classical drapery that we studied in the Greek unit. Think about the Nike of Samothrace with the wet drapery kind of clinging to the body. So that's more in sculpted relief as compared to the Jowo Rinpoche's drapery. All right, size, larger than life, sometimes dressed with the magnificent jeweled crown and robes. If you look back here, he's missing all of the decorated ornamentation on his body. And here he has it back on. Function. The purpose of the statue's carving was to act as the Buddha's proxy after his parinirvana, or departure from the world. So what comparisons can we make from this piece to the African artwork Ndap? Think about form first. I was thinking about the way he was sitting, how he's decorated with royal regalia. He's wearing a headdress. He's kind of up on a platform. Definitely not larger than life. This is smaller. Definitely different material. This is wood, both shiny though. But then also the function. I believe the Ndap would kind of sometimes take the place of the king, like it would be into the wife's chambers and act as his surrogate, or it would kind of take on some of the kingship after the king passed away. All right, Longmen Caves. Okay, and we're talking about the word Buddha. Buddha means an awakened one. So the title Buddha is used for those who have achieved this awakening. So there's multiple versions of Buddhas because multiple people have reached this awakening. There is one that's referred to as the Buddha, and this is the the creator of the religion. And this is Siddhartha Gautama, that's the Buddha. But then there's multiple different Buddhas. So this Buddha that's at the Longman Caves, this is a colossal, how do you want to say that? Vairocana Buddha, flanked, so that means on either side, by 8 massive attendants. So when we did Egyptian art, we talked about conventions, kind of like rules. If you were going to portray the king or the pharaoh, how did you have to portray him? What are the conventions in portraying a pharaoh? So there's kind of something similar for portraying a Buddha. So when you look at this Buddha and think of other Buddhas, how is he being portrayed? What do you notice? So here's some of those ideas that are conventions for portraying the Buddha. There's always that bun on the top or the top knot, which is called an Ushnisha, the bump of knowledge. It's an uppermost bump of the head, symbolizes spiritual wisdom. So you can relate that back to Pacific artwork where the head is enlarged, or African artwork where the head is enlarged, and they do that to reinforce the seat of wisdom. The Nikkei jewel, which radiates the light of wisdom, is located at the front base of the Nikkei. That's number 2. So right here, kind of a circle right in front of the bump of knowledge. Number 3 is the hair is always depicted in these small spiral curls. And then number 4, sorry, I was reading it. The urna is like a shining, okay, so this is kind of the symbolic third eye, the all-seeing eye. And it's usually just depicted as a kind of a bump or a circle in between the 2 eyes. I thought this was really interesting. I never heard this before. 3 like rolls in the neck. 3 creases in the neck. So many images of the Buddha also show him with 3 folds of skin on the neck. Some speculate that this symbolizes the beauty of the conch shell. However, others say this represents the roar of the lion because of the Buddha's spoken teachings were like the roar of the lion spreading throughout the world. And I immediately think of the African Bundu mask that had the rolls on the back of the neck that could have represented the water god emerging out of the water and the ripples in the water. And it also represented the beauty in a larger woman being able to actually produce a healthy baby. So having that healthy fat on a woman is something that was thought of as beautiful. And also representing the chrysalis of a moth in the Bundu mask. But we're going to try to go back and look. Oh yeah, so if you look kind of closely at this fuzzy picture, you can kind of see some lines on the neck. So maybe those are the creases on the neck. The robe stitched together from rags, the mudras, the hand symbols, those are typically found on a Buddha, a mandorla. Leg positioning. Here we see the cross-legged meditation pose called the lotus position, one of 3 basic poses. Like the lotus, which grows out of the mud at the bottom of a pond, the Buddha is an enlightened being who grew out of the mud of the material world. And then the ears. Most ears on the Buddha are depicted as elongated earlobes and sometimes contain slits. This is supposed to be a reminder of when Shakyamuni used to be Prince Siddhartha and how he wore heavy earrings. This is to symbolize that if one wants to gain enlightenment, one must give up material objects. Oh man, I'm wearing really long dangly earrings right now. I don't think I can give them up. All right. So about the Longmen Caves, back to this. This continues a tradition of carving on a monumental, a huge scale into cliffs along the Silk Road. So what other Buddha was carved into a cliff along the Silk Road? That was the Bamiyan Buddhas, right? They're not there anymore. The Taliban destroyed them. So Bamiyan Buddhas are in Afghanistan, right here, Bamiyan. And then in China are the Longmen Caves. There's also guardian figures. There's 4 of them. This is just showing 2, and they're standing in that contrapposto pose. They have a lot of musculature, which is different than Buddha. Buddha is always very soft and round. Also, notice this guy's standing on another fellow. Kind of reminds me of Shiva, who stands on the dwarf of ignorance. We also have David standing on the head of Goliath. Yeah, standing on someone. And then, of course, we have our other guardian figures. These are from Todaiji in Japan. Those are carved out of wood. Also strong contrapposto pose, a lot of dynamic movement with the flowing of those skirts. We just say fabric. And then we have the Lama Su guardian figures as well. All right, function of these, of course, is to protect, because they're guardians, but it's to protect Buddhist values and beliefs from evil spirits. Keep those evil spirits out. All right, overall, the Longmen Caves convey the support of the Chinese imperial court for the spread of Buddhism, since they were the patrons. The imperial court were the sponsors of this project. They helped fund it. So carved into the wall of the cave behind the Buddha is a halo and flaming mandorla. So this is behind his head, and this represents the Pure Land faith. And you can kind of see the fires. And then that made me think of that contemporary piece that is actually named Pure Land. So then I had to research again what this piece was about, but you can already make some relationships, right? She is floating, kind of hovering peacefully above a lotus blossom. She has the same kind of flowing robes. So I got this from Khan Academy. The distant horizon line combined with the larger island in the foreground that seems to continue into the viewer's space creates a sense of immersion, as if one were present with these fantastical figures. Perhaps this feeling of personal involvement ties in with the title itself, Pure Land, which is the paradise of Amida Buddha, who descends to greet devotees at the moment of their death and takes them back to his pure land of perfect bliss. So that was the Khan Academy describing the contemporary art piece of Pure Land. It also described these fantastical creatures kind of as being bodhisattvas, people who are helping Buddha reach enlightenment, or people who are hoping to reach enlightenment. And then it described this odd robot-like creature kind of resembling a stupa. Bamiyan. Oh yeah, okay, all of our different Buddhas. So let's do a quick comparison, run through of the different Buddhas. So Bamiyan is the oldest Buddha, and this is in Afghanistan, 400 to 800 Common Era. When this was standing, you could circumambulate around the feet, and it is Greco-Roman inspired drapery because it's along the Silk Road. This is a good example of cultural exchange. And then the Taliban destroyed this because of iconoclasm, and they had news cameras there to broadcast it. They made it a big deal. All right, then we have the Longmen Caves in China. And then Longmen Caves are 493 to 1127. And then we have Zhou Rinpoche, 641. Another good example of cultural exchange because it's from Tibet, and Buddhism came to Tibet. A Chinese princess brought this along with the religion when she married the Tibetan king. He converted to Buddhism. And then we have the Great Buddha. This is a very large Buddha. This is in Todaiji in Japan. And again, you can see all those conventions that we talked about. This is that third all-seeing eye, the snail curl-like hair, the elongated earlobes, the drapery, the flowing robes, the mudra. Oh, you can kind of see some lines on the neck. And then we have Borobudur, which is 750 to 852 Common Era. And then once you reach enlightenment, when you get to the top of circumambulating Borobudur, there's all these stupas. And inside of each of these bell-shaped or hemispherical stupas, there are Buddhas inside of all of them. And then this one is uncovered. We don't know why. There you go. Done.